Hello North Model Congress delegates, this is your webmaster Siddharth Satish, and this video is centered around amendments, which are a perfect way to gain extra speaking time and show leadership in your committee sessions. So, in today's video, I'm going to go over why you should amend, when you should amend, what not to amend, and finally, during your in-person meetings or sometimes Zoom and virtual meetings, you will have the chance to practice your amendment skills as well. Now, first, why should you amend? Well, the obvious answer is to increase the amount of speaking time that you're getting. In competitive chambers, especially ones like full committee, you may not get that first few speeches, like the unstructured 4-minute con, or the 2-minute pro, or even the 2-minute con on that bill. However, by amending, you can show that you're still involved in a committee and that you're really listening to the arguments that are being furthered and you want to make sure that change is made. And this goes into the leadership point as well, but let's understand how you're going to get speaking time first. So, by passing an amendment and putting it forth that is extremely debatable, this cannot be so much so that, only 2 people in your committee session want to debate it. It has to be close to a majority that want to debate it. And something that is going to be likely ruled by the author as unfriendly is the perfect way to get your speaking time in. Because if it's friendly, it's automatically incorporated, shows that you did something, but no impact because you don't get a speech. Now, in your speeches, I would ask you to have nuanced arguments. Don't come up on a bill that's surrounding an issue like removing funding from the military and or increasing the funding for the military or anything related with funding. Don't come up and say, well, I think we should increase funding. No, that's something that's probably said in the authorship speech, and the author probably gave multiple reasons why he or she thinks that funding should be increased. Don't repeat what has already been said. Talk about how increase in funding may take money away from other departments, or a decrease in funding could worsen a department. And talk to us about why that's really grave and important, and how your amendment actually addresses that issue. So you're actually bringing up a problem and solving it with your amendment, which is the perfect way to actually show you're a leader. And that brings me to my second point on leadership. Now, it's often easy for us to forget that we're here to collaborate and pass effective legislation because we're all behind that gavel. We're all behind getting more speeches. We're all behind having just listening to our own voices. That's something that we do consistently. But by passing amendments, you show collaboration, a willingness to work with other people. And you do more than ripping apart a bad bill. I can say with utmost confidence that better than a 4-minute con that rips a bill apart to shreds is a 4-minute con that addresses the issues inside of the legislation and tells the committee how the speaker will actually solve them through amendments and how we should work together to amend the legislation. You need to be against a legislation because you can't pass it as it is. And that's why that 4-minute con would be important and how that shows leadership. Now let's talk about when you should go about amending. During an authorship, it's an extremely bad thing to go up, especially walk up to a chair and give up an amendment in your full sessions or pass it down the table during your small sessions. It's extremely disrespectful. You're not listening to the reasons why the author is saying why they made the choices that they made. During structured debate, it's okay to put it up, especially if you're not speaking, but don't ever put up an amendment when someone is speaking. It's extremely disrespectful because you're not paying attention to what they are saying. But I would also suggest wait until unstructured because it shows that you've listened to everything and that you're just not being immediately hasty, and submit an amendment then. Now, what you should not amend. I know I spoke about funding, but if an entire bill is around funding, you can make edits. However, very rarely in a committee will you need to amend a funding clause. Don't amend $10 to $11 or anything insignificant like that. And I think you guys can make that decision yourself. You can say, oh, is $1 million extra going to make that big of a change? Is that something that committee actually wants to discuss? If the answer is no, then don't make that amendment. Enactment clauses. 91 versus 92 days does not matter. Some people come up and say 180 days. It's fine. And in some type of education legislation, they might say 91 days instead of the next school year. Don't go about amending that. No one really cares, to be quite frank. They care about the meat of the legislation that you're evading. Now, if it's less than 90 days, I would advise that you let the author know and let the rest of the committee know that you understand a less than 90-day piece of legislation is called an emergency legislation and that you need a 2/3 vote to have it passed. Grammar. This is a major problem that many early delegates face, and that's editing stuff like semicolons or commas. And even in this sentence, you'll see a grammatical error. But if it was in a bill, I wouldn't go about taking out that comma at the end. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the idea that is being communicated. Now that you know more, let's try and practice. So, if you're watching this during an actual meeting, you're going to be practicing immediately after. If you're watching this by yourself, try and practice that at your next meeting. Thank you so much for your time, North MC. Have a great day.